So I'm going to show you how to do the provisional or invisible cast on for the Courchevel Cardi. That's the start we're going to use. And for that I'm using a long circular needle. Now this one is 40 inches long. It's from the Addy Click set, and I recommend a 32 inch 81 centimeter or longer circular needle. I'm using a 40 inch at the moment, and it's a size US 6 4mm. And I'm also going to be using, in place of waste yarn, I'm going to use a spare cable, also 40 inches long, from the Addy Clicks, and it has the heart stoppers on the end, very cute little heart stoppers, and that's so that the stitches don't fall off. Now you can use waste yarn. If you do use waste yarn, I recommend that you use something other than your working yarn. You want to make sure that it's something that's a contrast colour and something slick, not fluffy, that will stick to your working stitches. So use something, maybe a mercerized cotton or a bamboo or silk, or something that's smooth and that's going to slide out of the working yarn easily, so that you can transfer them onto a needle cable later on. But I'm going to work my stitches directly onto the spare cable, and then I can just switch out the needle points for the I can just switch out the stoppers for the needle points and then continue working on those stitches when I need to work in the opposite direction. So to start off with, I'm getting my cables tangled. To start off with, you need to put a slip knot onto your spare cable or waste yarn. So here's my end of my yarn. Today I'm using the Gala Yarns Peruvian Tweed, which is the yarn I recommend in the pattern. Instead of doing two colours, the stripe version, I'm actually going to do just one colour version, and I've picked this colour 109, and so it's going to be all in one colour, no stripes, and just have to say I love the new labels that they've made. Very cool. Okay, so slip knot. I'm going to take the end and wrap it around 2 fingers and then pop the long end through that loop. And you know it's a slip knot because if you pull it, it slips undone. So again, round 2 fingers, the long end through that loop I've just made, and there's my slip knot. And I'm going to put that slip knot onto my spare cable, or if you're using waste yarn, put it onto your waste yarn. Doesn't need to be tight. And then a little way from that end, I'm going to hold that together, and I'm going to take my circular needle and put my needle point in front of the yarn and my spare cable or waste yarn, and I'm going to hold that tail, hold the slip knot, and hold that cable all together in my right hand. And then with my left hand I'm going to put my index finger and thumb in between the cable or waste yarn and working yarn and make a triangle. So I have this triangle shape going on here. And then to make the first stitch to put onto my needle, I'm going to dip the needle into that triangle, pick up the yarn, and then that's 1 stitch on my needle and my cable or waste yarn. And then to make the second stitch, I'm going to go behind, let me move that out of the way, I'm going to go behind the cable, behind and underneath the working yarn, and then go backwards into that triangle and pick up a stitch. And now I have 2 stitches on my needle and 2 stitches on my cable. So for the maneuver, you're making 2 stitches, you're going 1, 2. So for each time you do that, you get 2 stitches. And if you notice, they're all slanting in the same direction. They're slanting towards the left. So again, I'm going to dip into that triangle, pick up the yarn, go behind the cable or waste yarn, behind the yarn and underneath, and then go backwards into that triangle to pick up the stitch. So in the triangle from the front, all the way around underneath, and in the triangle towards the back. And there's another 2 stitches. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and I'm just going to carry on doing that until I have the required amount of stitches. And in this case it is an even number, which is good. So into that triangle, pick up the yarn behind, underneath, and pick up the yarn. So 1, 2, 1, 2. It's actually a very nice movement. It's nice and fluid. Nice, round, smooth movement, and you can do this slowly and count your stitches, or you can do it quickly and then count when you think you have about the right amount, and make sure you have the right amount. Keep going. And so I'm going to carry on with this until I have my required amount of stitches for the cast on, dipping in all the way around and underneath, dipping in backwards. So dipping forwards, all the way around underneath, dipping backwards. And I'm picking up 2 stitches with that movement. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And each time I do that, I'm getting a stitch on my needle and then also a stitch on my cable. So there's 2 stitches. You see the stitches on the needle and the stitches on the cable. And the reason I'm doing this is so that I can knit down from these stitches on the needle the body and the sleeves, and then when that's finished I'm going to come back and I have these live stitches to work the collar with. So there's no messing around with picking up stitches or making a seam. This is all going to be nice and smooth and seamless. So I'm going to carry on doing that until I have my stitches, and then I'll come back and do the next bit.